In this episode of Ishq, the story moves into a quieter and more reflective phase. Characters begin to reassess earlier decisions. Motives become clearer, and the space between them shifts not through sudden twists, but through gradual understanding. The change is subtle, but the consequences are important. Episode 58 does not rely on dramatic events. It relies on measured conversations and emotional clarity. This breakdown focuses on what the characters did, why they made those choices, and how those choices shape the future of the story. The episode opens with a cautious sense of distance between the leads. They share the same environment, but not the same emotional space. They interact politely, but without depth. Their tone is controlled. Every sentence has weight, even if the words are simple. Both characters seem aware that silence has gone on for too long. Both want resolution, but neither wants to ignite conflict. This mutual hesitation becomes the emotional foundation of the episode. It is not tense. It is not confrontational. It is simply two people who have things to say, but no clear way to start the conversation. A small and practical issue becomes the bridge that forces them to talk. It is not emotional. It is not dramatic. It is something ordinary related to the household or a routine matter. But the ordinary moment becomes important because it allows them to speak without addressing the deeper issues directly. Their sentences are short. Their eyes avoid direct contact, but neither one walks away. They continue the conversation longer than necessary. That simple continuation shows that both are ready for change, but still uncertain about how to reach it. A third character appears briefly, adding a quiet layer of social pressure. This person does not create conflict. They do not confront the leads. Their presence alone reminds the main characters that their choices extend beyond themselves. Their behavior affects the entire environment around them. The supporting characters' few lines and calm demeanor push the leads to consider the broader impact of their silence. It is a soft reminder that relationships are not isolated. They exist within families, households, and social expectations. After this interaction, the episode offers private reflection scenes for each lead. These scenes reveal internal motives that the characters do not voice out loud. Humayoun Ashraf's character sits with his thoughts, reviewing earlier moments where miscommunication created an unnecessary distance. His expressions show subtle regret, but the regret is controlled. He does not dwell on it. He simply acknowledges that better communication could have prevented confusion. His reflection shows that he values clarity and responsibility. Malik's character receives her own moment. Her thoughts revolve around emotional weight she has carried for several episodes. She reflects on the burden of staying silent, on the fear of making situations worse, and on the consequences of not speaking when clarity was needed. She appears calm but thoughtful. Her reflection suggests she understands how her earlier choices contributed to the emotional gap. These quiet scenes deepen both characters. They prepare the ground for the conversation that follows. The central moment of the episode arrives through a calm, structured conversation between the leads. There is no raised tone, no dramatic music, no emotional outburst. The exchange relies entirely on measured sentences. Humayoun's character begins by asking simple questions. He focuses on clarity. He avoids blame. His sentences are direct. His intention is not to win the argument, but to understand what went wrong. Maria's character answers with context rather than defense. She explains her thoughts honestly. She clarifies misunderstandings without shifting responsibility. She speaks in a practical tone, acknowledging that silence created complications. She expresses that her choices came from caution, not avoidance. Her tone shows sincerity. Both characters give each other the space to speak. They do not interrupt. They do not force resolution. They simply share their perspectives, The conversation does not resolve the entire conflict, but it opens the door toward understanding. The episode shows that progress happens through small shifts rather than large gestures. As the discussion ends, their expressions soften. The silence that follows feels different. It is no longer filled with unanswered questions. It is filled with quiet acceptance. Following the conversation, the episode shows small gestures from both characters that signal progress. These gestures are simple: a more relaxed tone, a longer moment of eye contact, a slight ease in their movements around each other. Nothing is explicit, but everything is meaningful. These subtle changes show that both characters are ready to move forward. Not instantly, not dramatically, but steadily. Meanwhile, a background family situation unfolds. It does not dominate the episode. It does not disrupt the emotional pacing. Instead, it works quietly in the background as a future narrative thread. It hints at challenges that will likely shape the next episodes. This subplot keeps the story balanced. While the main leads move toward emotional clarity, the larger world around them prepares new dynamics. The episode uses this balance to maintain realism and steady pacing. The final stretch of the episode focuses on emotional realism. The characters are calmer. The environment feels more stable. The unresolved tensions are still present, but the weight they carried earlier has reduced. The ending suggests that episode 59 will continue exploring communication, transparency, and shared responsibility. Episode 58 is important because it begins the shift from misunderstanding to clarity. The series has relied heavily on silence and emotional restraint in earlier episodes. This episode begins to undo that pattern. When a story built on misunderstandings starts introducing honest conversations, it changes direction. The emotional tone becomes more grounded. The characters become more relatable. Another important aspect of the episode is the portrayal of emotional responsibility. Both leads recognize their contribution to the earlier tensions. They do not blame each other. They focus on understanding. They reflect on their own behavior. This level of maturity adds weight to their characters. It strengthens their credibility and reshapes the relationship in a healthier direction. This episode also deepens character development. Humayoun Ashraf's character, known for his calm and analytical nature, becomes more active. His measured approach becomes a strength rather than a flaw. He steps forward with clarity and initiative. Malik's character appears more balanced. Her internal burden now has context. Her choices appear thoughtful rather than reactive. The episode brings both characters closer to emotional honesty. The episode also prepares the story for future narrative turns. By reducing misunderstandings, it clears space for new developments. The subplot involving another family member or issue promises new movement. It shows that the story will not remain static. It will continue to evolve, but without relying on sudden twists. Instead, it will follow natural emotional progression. A significant aspect of episode 58 is its adherence to realistic storytelling. There's no exaggerated drama. Characters behave like real people navigating complicated emotions. Conversations unfold at a natural pace. Decisions come from reflection rather than impulse. This documentary-style realism creates a grounded atmosphere that matches the tone of the series. Finally, the emotional tone of the narrative stabilizes. Earlier episodes leaned heavily on tension, hesitation, and silence. Episode 58 replaces intensity with calm reflection. It shows that the story is ready to move toward communication rather than conflict. It prepares the audience for a more open and balanced dynamic between the leads. In the conclusion of episode 58, the story reaches an important but quiet turning point. Humayoun Ashraf's character chooses clarity. He steps into conversation with honesty and restraint. Malik's character chooses transparency. She explains her choices with calm acceptance. Their interaction suggests the beginning of trust rebuilding. They are not fully aligned yet, but they are no longer moving in opposite directions. The episode ends with subtle emotional progress, emerging family complications, and a sense of steady forward movement. It opens the path for future chapters that will explore deeper communication, personal growth, and new challenges shaped by the evolving family environment. Episode 58 does not close a chapter. It opens the next one quietly and purposefully, guiding the narrative toward clearer emotional ground. The next phase of episode 58 deepens the emotional momentum established earlier. The characters continue navigating their environment with caution, but their behavior begins to reflect new internal conclusions. The episode moves into a stretch where silence carries less tension and more awareness. The characters are no longer avoiding each other. They are simply adjusting to a more honest space. Their interactions remain measured, but they carry a sense of progress that was not present before. The day continues with routine household tasks, but these routines feel different now. The leads move with less hesitation. They speak when necessary. Their sentences are simple, practical, and grounded. This does not create sudden warmth between them, but it reduces the earlier emotional distance. Their shared environment becomes more functional. This functionality shows that they are willing to coexist with more openness than before. These small behavioral adjustments create a pattern that shapes the tone of the episode. A brief exchange occurs when they cross paths again. The conversation is short, but it carries more ease. They discuss a logistical matter, perhaps related to family needs or responsibilities. Their tone remains calm. Their body language is not defensive. For the first time in several episodes, the audience sees them operate like two individuals willing to coordinate rather than avoid. This marks another step toward organic communication. While the leads navigate this shift, the background subplot continues to build quietly. Another character deals with an issue that gradually becomes more noticeable. This situation is presented without urgency. The show avoids turning it into immediate conflict. Instead, the subplot creates a sense of anticipation. It serves as a reminder that the story's world is broader than the lead's relationship. The unfolding situation hints that future episodes may direct attention toward new developments. The episode then focuses again on the lead's internal journeys. Humayoun Ashraf's character sits alone for a moment, reviewing the earlier conversation in his mind. The scene is subtle. His expression shows careful analysis rather than emotional overwhelm. He evaluates the clarity he received. He considers the sincerity in Maria's responses. His reflection indicates that he is willing to move forward with a more balanced mindset. He seems to understand that misunderstandings, once cleared, should not be carried unnecessarily. Malik's character also processes the conversation. She reflects on the relief that came from speaking openly. Her expression shows a quiet recognition that honesty simplifies emotional burdens. She seems more grounded. Her internal tension appears reduced. The episode uses these reflective scenes to show growth without needing heavy dialogue. Both characters become emotionally lighter, even if they do not express it aloud. As the day transitions into its next sequence, the characters find themselves in another shared moment. This time, the interaction occurs naturally. They do not plan it. It emerges from routine. Their conversation is once again practical. But unlike earlier scenes, this one has a smooth, unforced rhythm. The shift is subtle but meaningful. They communicate with efficiency and calm. Their voices remain neutral. Their gestures remain composed. But the natural flow suggests that the emotional barriers between them are slowly dissolving. The episode also introduces a moment involving family members observing the lead's interaction. The observation is quiet, no one interferes, but the silent presence of others highlights that the emotional atmosphere in the house is changing. Family members seem aware that something has shifted. The environment feels more stable. This stability reinforces that the earlier tension has softened. The subplot continues to gain shape during the middle portion of the episode. The additional characters issue grows slightly more complex. Again, the narrative does not treat it with intensity. Instead, it presents it as part of the natural progression of family life. This subplot appears designed to provide new story directions for future episodes. It gives viewers something to anticipate without disrupting the emotional tone of episode 5-8. As the episode progresses, a scene emerges where the leads must stand together in a shared responsibility. They address a common task or situation that requires cooperation. The moment is important because it tests whether the clarity they gained earlier can translate into functional teamwork. They handle the situation with composure. Their communication is smooth. Their actions align without conflict. The scene demonstrates that emotional progress can directly influence practical moments. This cooperative interaction subtly strengthens their dynamic. They do not discuss emotions. They do not revisit old issues. Instead, they simply act with a level of coordination that was missing in previous episodes. The lack of friction shows that they are capable of building a stable foundation if they maintain this direction. The episode uses this moment to show change through action rather than through words. As the day draws toward its final act, the episode slows its pace. The narrative gives space for quiet scenes that emphasize emotional grounding. Humayoun's character is seen reflecting again, but this time with a more relaxed presence. He looks calmer. The earlier pressure seems to have lifted. Maria's character also appears more settled. Her movements are more deliberate. Her expression is softer. These scenes show the cumulative effect of the earlier conversation. Toward the end of the episode, another brief exchange occurs between the leads. This exchange is even shorter than the earlier ones, but it carries a sense of comfort. The tone is neither formal nor strained. It is neutral, simple, and human. The conversation reinforces that emotional progress does not always need explicit acknowledgement. Sometimes it shows itself through smaller, consistent actions. The subplot surfaces again just before the episode reaches its close. The secondary character situation now has clearer direction. It appears that the issue will develop into a major storyline in the next episodes. The quiet pacing of episode 58 ensures that the subplot does not overshadow the emotional clarity of the leads. Instead, it works in parallel, preparing the narrative for broader developments. The final moments of the episode focus on calm imagery. The environment feels stable. The emotional tone is balanced. The characters appear more aligned with themselves, even if not fully aligned with each other. The episode closes with the sense that emotional groundwork has been laid for future episodes to build upon. There are no grand declarations, no confrontations, no sudden shifts. The story ends in quiet forward motion. Part 2 concludes the extended analysis of episode 58 by showing how subtle changes in behavior, communication, and mutual awareness can reshape the emotional direction of a story. It highlights gradual progress, steady character development, and the realistic unfolding of interpersonal dynamics. It prepares the narrative landscape for episode 59, where clarity may continue to grow and new challenges may emerge through the evolving family subplot. As the narrative moves into the final stretch of episode 58, the atmosphere settles into a steady rhythm. The earlier emotional distance has softened. The conversations have become smoother. The characters have moved from uncertainty to quiet acceptance. This final segment focuses on how the day closes and how each character carries the weight of the episode's developments into the next stage of the story. The episode shifts toward an evening setting. The environment becomes quieter. The lighting softens. The mood becomes reflective. The leads enter this part of the story with a different energy. They are neither tense nor overly expressive. They behave with the calmness that comes after a meaningful conversation. Their earlier conflicts have not disappeared, but the urgency surrounding them has reduced. The episode uses this tone to emphasize that emotional progress does not happen in dramatic leaps. It happens in steady layers. The leads continue their routine activities. Each movement reflects a sense of regained composure. Humayoun Ashraf's character walks through the space with measured confidence. His expressions are subtle but relaxed. He seems more present. His earlier silence was heavy. Now his silence appears thoughtful. This transformation shows how understanding can shift the emotional weight of a character without requiring explicit dialogue. Malik's character also moves differently. Her internal conflict has reduced. Her body language appears lighter. She carries herself with a sense of grounded calm. She is not avoiding anyone. She is not walking with hesitation. The episode positions her as someone who has finally exhaled after carrying emotional weight for too long. Her presence becomes more stable, which strengthens the realism of her character's journey. The episode then introduces a moment where both characters are in the same space again. Not out of necessity, but out of natural routine. This moment is important because it demonstrates that their emotional shifts have translated into physical ease. They communicate briefly. The sentences are short and practical, nothing expressive, nothing symbolic. But the lack of tension in their voices signals how far they have come since the beginning of the episode. A small incident then arises, something minor but meaningful in demonstrating their changing dynamic. One character needs assistance with a simple task. The other steps in without hesitation. The exchange is efficient. They work together with ease. The moment reinforces the idea that cooperation has become smoother. Their ability to support one another is no longer obstructed by emotional barriers. This subtle interaction becomes one of the strongest indicators of healed communication. The family subplot reappears in this final act. The situation involving the secondary character becomes more defined. It does not overshadow the leads, but it gains enough clarity to signal that it will inform the next episode's direction. The characters involved in the subplot express concern, but in a composed manner. Their reactions remain grounded. The episode uses this subplot to introduce future tension without disrupting the emotional recovery achieved in the main storyline. As the subplot unfolds, the leads observe it with thoughtful expressions. They understand that the upcoming challenge will likely require attention, possibly even cooperation. Their reactions show that they are prepared to handle future issues with more maturity than before. This observation scene acts as a transition, connecting the emotional resolution of this episode with the narrative possibilities of the next. A reflective moment follows, focusing on Humayoun's character. He sits quietly, allowing the events of the day to settle in his mind. His expression shows a balance between acceptance and continued thought. He understands that conversations alone cannot repair everything, but he also knows that communication is the foundation of progress. His quiet reflection suggests that he is now committed to maintaining clarity, even when conversations are difficult. Maria's character receives a parallel moment of reflection. She stands in a calm environment, observing her surroundings with a clearer perspective. Her expression shows a combination of relief and cautious optimism. She seems prepared to approach the future with a more open mindset. Her reflection reveals that she no longer feels trapped by silence. Instead, she feels supported by the understanding that speaking openly leads to resolution. Not conflict. As the evening deepens, the episode returns to the leads one final time. They cross paths again. The interaction is short, but it carries warmth, not overt warmth, but a subtle human warmth that did not exist earlier. They exchange a few words. The words matter less than the tone. Their voices are no longer guarded. The shift feels natural. The moment suggests a future where communication will continue to improve. Even if challenges arise, the camera lingers on the environment before transitioning to the next scene. The house feels calmer. The atmosphere suggests a quiet reset. The emotional echoes of earlier episodes have softened. What remains is the steady rhythm of a household adjusting to clarity. The episode uses this calm setting to reinforce the idea that emotional resolutions do not always need dramatic closure. Sometimes they need only improved understanding. The final subplot moment unfolds just before the episode ends. The supporting character's issue reaches a point where it clearly demands attention in the coming episode. The tone remains calm, but the shift is noticeable. This narrative move sets the stage for episode 59, where personal and family dynamics may intersect in new ways. The leads appear aware of this developing situation. Their expressions show readiness rather than resistance. The final scene returns to a quiet image, focusing on the leads separately. Humayoun's character appears thoughtful but confident. Maria's character appears relaxed but reflective. Their separate frames symbolize that they still have personal journeys ahead. Yet the emotional alignment between them has grown stronger. The episode closes on this balance, two individuals moving through their own growth, but now capable of moving forward without misunderstanding. Episode 58 ends not with a climax, but with emotional clarity. The narrative reinforces that the story's strength lies in realistic communication, steady progression, and grounded emotional transitions. The lead's relationship does not transform suddenly. It evolves naturally. Their interactions move from hesitation to cooperation. Their reflections shift from confusion to understanding. Their silence changes from avoidance to comfort. These changes form the foundation for the episodes that follow. This final segment confirms that episode 58 is a transitional chapter. It ties together earlier tension and prepares the characters for new narrative developments. It stabilizes the emotional landscape and creates space for future complexity. The episode closes quietly, confidently, and purposefully, guiding the series toward the next stage with balanced emotional realism.